Alright, guys, I'll be starting in a minute. Just setting up everything. And while I'm waiting, let's just get some music going on. Sorry, guys, waiting for everything to come up. Be starting in a minute. There we go. Everything's loading up. Alright, good. It looks like everything is starting up. No, this isn't a game. This is actually just a blog of discussion. And we're setting up everything for today. And this is this shouldn't take long. It may take long. This is my first time doing a live stream as far as response video. So let's see how this works out. I've been trying to do different ways of trying to do this. So looks like we got our music back. Alright. Let's see if our music works right now. My music isn't working. Oh well. Don't need live music in order for it to work. But we do need this. Setting up everything, and I wish I can actually set this up before I go live, but that's okay. Come on, we're gonna actually do this. Pull it up, pull it up. Alright, so let's get started with this. Alright, this is Crimson 60612, and let's start with the opening. Come on. Just hit that shit. Alright, let's go. So, this is Crimson 60620. Let's turn that music on. It's a little bit hot, guys, so if you hear a fan going on, it's just me trying to stay cool. Alright. Alright. Thank everybody who's watching. And so, I was actually looking at looking at different videos, different complaints about the new Battlefield 5 that's coming, and I kind of watched something that was a little bit irritating to me, and basically I kind of went down the YouTube rabbit hole, and well, I ran into this video. So let's go ahead and get this started. I'm gonna cut off the music for it because I know it's a little bit I have headphones on just to make sure that I can actually hear the video. So let's go.
Saying that the sky is blue, that water is wet, or that penis inside vagina makes babies is not political. It's factual. You may not like any of those facts, but facts they are, nonetheless.
Alright, so this is me first stopping in, and I'm actually trying this new format because before I would just record it on OBS, put it through my YouTube channel, or put it through my PlayStation. And so this gives me a little bit more control. And you guys can see actually what I'm talking about. So just going back to this video, this guy's name American Corrigan, and basically I went through some of his other videos and it's kind of scary, but let's go through it, and we're gonna start off right here. His complaint is he sets us up as an authority on these are just immutable facts. We need this is just the truth, and he throws in a joke, albeit I'm not above my inner 14-year-old penis and vagina makes a baby. But let's go.
I want the truth! You can't handle the truth!
So do yourself the favor of not accusing me in the comments of being political in what I'm about to say. In this video, I will try to make a small effort to highlight why men like open world games more than women.
Alright, so just that alone. Don't be political. Don't blame me for being political right before I say something that is political. God, dog, do you understand the irony of what's happening? Now, I'm going to actually take the time to say that I don't actually cloak myself as saying that I'm not political. I am. We all are. We have all sorts of policies and all sorts of ideas, things that actually we believe, things that we actually take as things we want to have and believe and understand and actually hold to. That's just called being a person. But I'm not going to crucify you for your beliefs. I'm going to show you why your beliefs are wrong, and I'm going to impart my own. So let's continue.
Not because I want to make a political statement, but because I find it both interesting and telling in terms of where we are headed as a species.
Wait a minute, what?
Away we go!
So, historically speaking, from an evolutionary standpoint, what is the function of men?
The function of a man is simply to fertilize a sperm. To have sperm to fertilize an egg. That's evolutionary. Nobody can dispute that. What have we structured in our society? That's a different conversation. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's continue.
To impregnate a female, sure, but beyond that, a man has to ensure the survival of the female he impregnates, and he has to ensure the survival of the baby they produce together as a team.
Yeah, but women have to do the same thing. We are a species where we take care of the next generation. And as evolution has, as you brought up, as evolution has dictated, we evolved to take care of our children. It's something that we do naturally. let's continue.
To do this, the man needs to go out into the world and gather resources, because the woman is, comparatively speaking, temporarily incapacitated by pregnancy. Of the
Now, I'm stopping it right here because this is pregnancy. That means nothing to after the child is born. We lived in a hunter gatherer society. The biggest change for our species happened one when we learned to stand up and walk upright. That's what triggered the whole, diversion from the chimps and caused us to be bipedal. Then another one is agriculture, farming the land. And then it became more of, well, that's a history lesson which we can get to later.
two parties to this reproductive enterprise, she is not best suited to go out into the world. Even if she were, it's highly likely that she would get hurt or possibly killed.
The same is true for man. And I don't get the logic behind this. People have been hunters and gatherers and foragers before we conglomerated into the society that we have now. Our closest genetic ancestors, the bonobos, they function as a group to make sure that everybody in the group is taken care of. But you don't see that, dog. Let's go.
And what happens to her happens to the baby. So the task logically falls to the man to amass the resources, which will in turn be used to help him, the woman, and the baby. In an open world game, players go out and hunt and collect. If nothing else, they do this over and over and over again.
Don't
Now-
wanna knock you off topic, but that subscribe overlay is sick as shit.
Thank you. So, here's the thing. I'm just looking at what's going on, and you've conflated two things specifically to what genetics and history has done for us. To the reason why we have so many open world games is because we actually live in a society, in a gaming culture now, where the publishers, the storytellers, the game developers are actually making open world games to get you hooked on doing certain things. It's more of a Skinner box than a type of game, because they want you to say, hey, go farm this, go do this, to get you hooked on just playing an open world game. Now, this is somebody who I played DCUO. I'm currently playing God of War, which isn't that open world, and I played Horizon Zero Dawn, and these are just to name a few. I spent so many hours in Final Fantasy VII. The open world games are not meant to feed a need of hunting and gathering. No, it's there to feed a need of having you run a treadmill so you can continually play the game. But let's continue.
Sometimes it's boring, sometimes it's engaging. But this is a principal ingredient in any open or semi-open world game. Whether it's collectibles, crafting materials, or money, there is always something that the player needs to collect in order to advance.
And you just said it. This is the reason why we have this. And I'm just at a loss, guy. You actually just spelled out. It's to sometimes it's boring, sometimes it's exciting. You're actually going to try to grab certain resources. This is not a genetic memory. No, this is something as gamers we have been trained to do ever since some of the older games. Legend of Zelda was an open world game. And I didn't play that because I wanted to, and I'm talking about the NES. I didn't play that because I wanted to fulfill some need of being a man and I needed to hunter and gather. No, I played it because I wanted to beat it and I wanted to find the next secret. But let's continue.
In order to survive, in order to overcome an obstacle, in order to win. Men,
So, when it comes down to it, everyone plays a game to overcome an obstacle. We are humans. We are competitive. And we like to freaking win. There we go. But that's in our nature because we are competitive creatures. Hell, we are creatures. Animals are even competitive. But this is actually a fortuitous screen grab. Men are less valuable than women. No, they're not. But let's continue.
Are less valuable than women, at least at the base reproductive level of our species. Sure, it does take two to make a baby, but one man can make multiple babies with several women in 9 months.
So wouldn't that mean that men are more valuable than women if it takes one man to reproduce with multiple women? Your argument is a complete fallacy because in the end, men and women have equal value. With no men, there are no babies. The same is with women. With no women, men can't have children. But let's continue.
Whereas a woman has to wait 9 months or longer before she can make another baby. This inherently lowers the value of men and makes them more expendable.
What mean expendable?
Okay, so men aren't expendable. I understand that you're going into this whole idea of how men are getting a raw deal now, and that's fine. If you want to have that conversation, have how specifically mechanization has changed the job market where jobs that were traditionally high paying are being replaced by machines, that's fine. That's a different conversation. But to just say that men aren't valuable, that leads me to believe that you have an inherent belief that you're not valuable. I know I'm valuable. I am valuable, even if the value is to myself. And I'm not saying this as some MGTOW, something of that nature, but I have value. I have meaning because it's the value and meaning I create within myself. Let's continue.
It's like someone invites you to a party and you don't show up. Doesn't really matter.
The fact is that most of a group's male population can die in a short span of time, and yet the group can still survive so long as there are several women and just a handful of men. This is one.
Okay. So I understand your fear. And I totally get it. We need women as a way of reproducing because that's what our species has actually done. That's fine. That's understandable. And biologically, there were actually a period in time, and it was actually borne down in a record because of, and I study history, and I know it had to do with a supermassive volcano actually erupted, where it was only 30 reproducing females in the entire world. We had got so genetically bottlenecked that it was only 30 women, and humans are a product of inbreeding. It happens. But that does not mean that women are more valuable than men, because as you've seen with so many sci-fi shows, I make mention that I've seen an Outer Limit episode, one of the new ones, where all the men died off and it was a species of women. They were still assholes. They were still corrupt. Women aren't. No one is saying that men are inherently evil. Just by you shouldn't say that women are inherently evil, and that it's just we are people. God, let's go. Let's continue.
Why women have been historically protected by men in every society.
And just this point alone, women haven't been historically protected by men. Going back to the horticultural thing, the reason why we were once a species of non-monogamy, we evolved to semi-monogamy, And the reason being, there's evidence in our DNA that the way a man's equipment is actually shaped, it was because men would compete for the same woman in actually some of episodes, the same episodes. The competition, the reason why our reproductive matter is the way it is, because we genetically had a competition for who was the best reproducing male, not by muscles, but inside of a woman's body. And just some of our close species on Earth, the gorillas, their factory of reproducing, and I'm trying to be clinical, their factories of reproducing um, items, the two items, are smaller compared to are smaller compared to the men's staff. The chimpanzees are the opposite, and humans are somewhere in the middle. We need each other, and for you to come out and say that women are more important because they carry the babies, that's stupid, dog. Human beings evolve. That's why babies are born so helpless, because human beings evolve that both parents take care of the children. And when it came down to it, one of the reasons why our society formed, where women are considered weaker and stays to the children versus men go out and hunt, is because of horticulture, where you wanted to pass on what you knew was your kid, your land, what you knew was your kid. That's the main reason why we have so many structures in areas where horticulture isn't a big thing, where farming isn't a big thing. Those structures aren't there. When it's a hunter gatherer tribe, men and women are on more equal footing. It's only because you wanted to pass the farm on to your son that we have the societal structures that we have now. But in places where it's not there, then they don't have that. But let's continue.
This is why men go out and fight the threats, not women. This is why men have evolved to have more upper body strength on average and to have a less fearful personality that was predisposed to violence and or cooperation.
What you're basically saying right here, dog, is that it's in our genetics to be assholes. And the sad part about it is, it's not really true. It's not always true that the stronger or the more violent or the less fearful ones are always the leaders. Leaders are made by people that can build a consensus. And you know what the fucked up part about it is? A lot of times when you go and actually look at the history of some of the people that you would actually claim are the manliest men, no, they were just people that, in essence, wanted to live their life with their family. When the need came up to protect somebody, when the need came up to actually say, we're going to be a warrior because we have to be, they stepped us for the cause. The funniest part about it is there is so much history out there about women leading or women being stronger that just gets ignored. And I'm not saying that they are the de facto group to be warriors. No, it's the fact that anybody can be strong, anybody can be a leader, and just because you have strength doesn't mean you're the best. A lot of people take the whole survival of the fittest to mean survival of the strongest. No, it's survival of the fittest. Who's ever fit to survive. Let's continue.
Open world games almost always have the player engage in violence of one form or another. The world is hostile, and the player must go out and confront it for their own good and for the good of a select group. Sometimes it's women and children, sometimes it's a small enclave, and sometimes it's for personal greed and glory. Even when the behavior is not virtuous, though, and male characters like Trevor, Franklin, and Michael in Grand Theft Auto 5 are robbing banks and killing innocent people in a civilized society, they are still engaging in typical, often reasoned, male-rooted behavior.
No, they're not. What they're doing is being a character in the video game. There are women who were robbing banks. There are women who kill people. It's not a genetic thing. Oh my God. It's just a societal thing. Some people have no compunctions for following society if they mean that they can get an easy dollar. I'm sorry to break it to you. This whole thing where you believe that women are just so gentile creatures. No. Don't happen, dog. It's not something that you don't. I understand. For about 40 to 50 years, we had this idea of the lever to beaver. We had this facade of things were always great, and we had this belief where one or two or three generations grew up with this is the way things are now. But that was never the way things always were. The American Norman Rockwell painting was just that. It was a painting. It wasn't reality. And I'm sorry if you believe that this was for reality for everyone. It wasn't. But let's continue.
They are gathering resources. They are only different from other men in so much that they have opted to violate societal trust in order to get ahead in the sexual reproduction game. But again, at their core, they are no different. They are still simply gathering resources, and they are gathering resources the best way that they know how. Crime and violence.
Okay, so here's the thing, God, and I'm sorry. I don't know what else to tell you. You have a belief that this is some genetic push that they have to be men. They have to be manly men. And I know it comes down later in the video, but you have this idea, this romanticization that to be what's called a man, you have to take other people's man cards. I'm a man. I don't need to be the top tier in order to be a man. I'm an adult. I handle my responsibilities. And here's a good thing. I am fully acceptant of who I am. I don't get where you have to be this Marlboro man, this tough, hard as nail bastard, where it's, if you don't look like Sylvester Stallone, which you showed a clip of, if you don't take anybody's shit, you're a man. That's not what manhood is, dog. That's a fucking G.I. Joe commercial, and even then, they weren't that fucking backwards for a kid's show.
Michael literally does everything for his wife and kids. Trevor and Franklin may not have a wife and kids, but their behavior is still predicated on this typical male drive. Gather resources for an eventual woman and child. I have to interject a disclaimer here. Violence and crime are not always the best reproductive strategies. Most of the time, they're a terrible strategy, but given a small enough worldview, low enough deferral of gratification, or a lack of other options, violence can be, or at least seem like, a viable option even in a modern society. All men throughout their lives make continuous conscious and unconscious situational cost-benefit analyses. Do you get more or less by playing the game according to society's rules? Do you get more or less by cooperating with the people around you? Franklin even has to weigh this out as the game comes to an end. Kill Michael or Trevor, or save both. Who is the better ally, and who helps or impedes Franklin's chances of successfully passing on his genes?
He didn't do it to pass on his genes. He did it because He just wanted to be an asshole. And I didn't play much of Grand Theft Auto 5. I actually played very little of it. A friend of mine had it, and I gave it back. But the story of Grand Theft Auto 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, is not about passing on a gene. It's about being a selfish asshole and running a criminal network. It's no reproductive thing about it. These are depraved human beings, and if you're looking to get lessons from them, learn the lesson that, hey, maybe I shouldn't be a criminal to get what I want. I don't get it. You idolize these people as if they're real. You know what? I'm not gonna do that, because I like certain historical people, even though they're not real. You know, some of the ones I like, even though they may be false or not real. I like Alexander the Great. He was a master strategist, and he was a person who actually led his men. He wasn't the most muscular thing in the world. Certain things that I'm not going to roll with him on. But he was intelligent. I like the fictional character of Horus. Again, running from somebody as a child to come back to be witty. I like Odysseus. Odysseus was never the strongest. He was around some people that were strong, but he won from wit, courage, and determination. Let's continue.
While all three are extremely violent criminals, it doesn't change the fact that the three were willing to cooperate for mutual benefit. This is what men do. They fight or cooperate based on a cost-benefit analysis of shared or unshared gain.
That's what we all do. We're human. Oh my God. Let's continue.
As paradoxical as it may sound, the root cause of their criminal cooperation is the same root cause of the society they prey upon. Society exists because men see that they usually gain more as individuals if they cooperate with each other and form a collective. This is why people have mixed feelings about criminals in pop culture, because on one hand, we see that they are essentially no different from us in that they cooperate with each other to overcome obstacles. But on the other hand, we know that they're basically cheating in the same game that we're all playing, and no one likes playing with cheaters.
Your hypocrisy is astounding. Everything that you mention has to do with what society says it is, and you're absolutely right. It's about empathy, and I wouldn't have touched this video if it was about how people come together. But you're making this that it's because men come together because we need to hunt and gather as men, and we have to work together as men to dominate the world. Grow up.
Perhaps another way to look at it is that we wish we were willing to take the same risks that they do and win big, but in the end, we enjoy the relative security of playing it safe rather than take the risk of losing absolutely everything. Open world games are rife with these kinds of male dilemmas. When should you, the player, cooperate, and when should you, the player, choose not to? When do you engage in violence, and when do you engage in diplomacy?
Nothing you have said reflects that it... What's up, reviewing? Thank you for watching. Thank you for tuning in. Nothing that you have said actually specifically says that it is only men that do this. Women do it too. I don't get where you believe that this is only specific to men. But let's go.
Furthermore, these games often allow men to act out in ways they normally wouldn't. It lets them experience virtual consequences for decisions that fall outside their normal behavior. Sure, open world games vary greatly in how many options they give you and how often they force violence on you. But more often than not, there is still a choice. The recent secret ending to Far Cry 5 shows.
Alright, so this is a non sequitur. It's an open world game. Women are violent too. Definitely women are violent. For you to actually make this that men are just violent, it says more to denigrate men than what you really think it does. People are inherently violent. People are inherently greedy. People are inherently self-preservation, are into self-preservation. Nothing, nothing you're saying specifically are towards men. But let's just finish this video.
Us that players had the choice to bypass all of the game's violence entirely if they were patient enough at the outset. And even if a game doesn't give us any option like that, players can simply not play the game. Of course, in some ways, that's basically forfeiting. Men choose to play no matter the apparent choices because they want to win.
Everybody wants to win. I wish that I was in your bubble where it was only one or two types of men that just want to win. Everyone wants to win. Everyone wants to compete. If we look at the animal kingdom, since you're talking about evolution, which I believe in evolution myself, but since we're talking about evolution, the men and women want to win. If you want to go to some relatives that we have, or even things that are not our relative, if you look at what goes on in the animal kingdom, you would actually see that. Just take the example of lionesses. Lionesses are the ones who go out and hunt. Lionesses are the one who gets most of the meat. And the only reason why the male lion actually eats first is because they're security guards. They're not the leaders. We need you strong to deal with the hyenas. But other than that, sit back and follow what we tell you to do. The Lion King lied to you because there's no such thing as a Lion King. There's a Lion Queen. There's an Elephant Queen. And there is no such thing as the biggest, baddest, strongest beta is the biggest, strongest, baddest alpha is the leader of the pack. It just doesn't work out that way. There are things in nature that dance and compete for the privilege of mating with females. But we're not animals. We're humans. And we make the decision to compete. We make the decision to go after certain things. It has nothing to do with what you have between your legs. It has something to do with what you have between your ears. But let's continue.
If a man is confronted with no options other than violence, he typically will not shy away. He will embrace violence as a viable option because he wants to win the game no matter what. And by not playing the game, he typically loses the game. Of course, not all men love open world games. Not all men even enjoy video games. If we're honest, some men see the nature of how the world works, and they not only embrace it, they excel at it. So games don't really serve them as much of a purpose. For many of us men, though, games are a way we get to exercise our nature that we normally can't.
Alright, so we get to the heart of the matter. We get to the meat of it. And what this is really about is boo-hoo, me. I'm a man, and I can't express my manliness like previous generations had to. That's what it really is about. Now, I'm 36 years old. I've been playing games for most of my life. They're not an escapist fantasy for me. I've been playing video games since I was about 7, and I never wanted to be a hero on the video game. What do I want to do? Well, right now I'm working a shit job in a pretty decent call center, but that doesn't define me because I'm not out grabbing grabbing a horde and riding through Central Asia like I'm fucking Genghis Khan. Doesn't mean that I'm less of a man. But you see yourself as somebody who needs to be this big, macho, strong, just man, because it would seem that you don't value yourself. And this is not a judgment call for me saying you have no value. No, this is your thing. I recently did a video on Solid Rev where he had to believe that women can't be badasses because, well, if they're badasses, he loses something as a man. I don't care how high you get. I don't care what accolades that you make it to. What you do is not going to take anything away from my self-confidence. I grew up in an era where my father was a plumber. And did I want to become a plumber like him? No. Did that make me less of a man in his eyes? No. Did that make me less of a man in my eyes? No. I still grew up. I still had a family. I still took care of my family. And if you believe that because even if I didn't have a family, I would still be a man because I have a principle. I have beliefs. I have a ground that I stand on. I have convictions. And more importantly, I'm a human. But let's hear you whine. Let's go.
Because society has begun to reject us. This brings up a side discussion of what has been happening to many men as a result of the changing economic, political, and social landscape of the first world. It's harder to compete now than it was 50 years ago, particularly in jobs and dating. It may be easier than ever to simply survive, but it's not easier to succeed in the eyes of women, or other men for that matter.
So, this goes back to the point that I was just making. Me being a successful man is not up to your standards. If I live my life judging my success by what other people actually believe and other people actually have standards, I would be a miserable human being. And I'm sorry for messing with my mic. It's just something that I like to do. But I would be a miserable human being to always wave in the wind of public opinion. And I will state this as true as I would state it any other time. I am my own person. And whether you find value in who I am, that's on you. But I will say this. And hear me out. Hear me now, quote me later. If you have to weigh your value against someone else, you will never find your value. If you're always chasing behind someone to say, look at me, I'm successful too, you will never find it. You will always have a hole in your heart, and that hole will never, ever be full. And so, I say, find value in yourself, and let's continue.
Success has always been a relative concept in society, and the bar has been raised exponentially for the past 100 years, while the means for success have been steadily shrinking since about the 1970s. The average wages for men are declining, as is the buying power of those wages. The cost of education has been increasing, while its value has been decreasing. The pool of men who are going to be successful is getting smaller and smaller and smaller.
So, if that is your argument? Let's have the socio-economic argument. Let's have that argument where we need to look at society and where it's not just affecting men, it's affecting everyone. And I'm not one of those people that says equal results, equal results for everyone. No, I believe in equal opportunity. That does not mean equal results. But what you're saying is we're losing on the opportunity, both men and women. I'm an African American man of color. There has been so much that we have faced in my demographic. Do I want everybody to be at the bottom? No. Do I want everyone to come out with the same outcome without the same amount of work? No. But if you want to talk about how everyone is suffering under the specifics of mechanization, the specifics of global trade, global commerce, if you want to have that discussion, we can have that discussion. But do not pin this on it's just happening to man, so woe is me. That doesn't make you a man, that makes you a little boy. Because at that point, you're not doing anything to help the problem. You're not working hard. You're not looking to change a conversation about the socioeconomics of things. I would have more respect for you. I would have infinitely more respect for you if you were to say, hey, this is affecting men and this is affecting women, so let's have that discussion instead of blaming it on a video game and what open world games do. It disgusts me that you will sit back and have a substance, but you cloud it in an argument about, well, men need open world games. How dare you?
If AI and automation have their way, eventually there will be no more successful men. So, we should start asking ourselves, as parents, as gamers, as men, as women, what is the world going to look like if a third, if half, if 3/4 of the population is no longer needed? Women may be somewhat immune to the initial consequences, but not indefinitely. Right now, there are literally not enough successful men to go around, and
I'm stopping it right here, and I try not to stop it in the middle of a sentence. But let's have that discussion. Don't coax your discussion. Don't coax your point in saying that, well, you need to have it where more men are, we need to take care of the men. No, we need to have a society where we're looking out for everyone. Not just one man or not just one group, or not just one minority. We need to work in a society where we are looking out for each other. And I'm not some crazy Marxist that thinks that we should get rid of personal property. No, but I believe that this runaway engine of capitalism, of costs and profits versus anything else, is a system that needs to be examined. If you want to have that discussion, please let's have that discussion. But don't go down the woe is me. Because I've looked at your other videos. This whole anti-SJW. You're being an SJW yourself. But what you're looking for is social justice for the man or the white man, or you're looking for social justice yourself, and you're just as toxic as any other game critic or game developer right out there that has a vagina. I literally would have more respect for you if you said we need to come together, not for the extreme well-being of everyone, but for just the benefit of us all. But no, you're stuck in your bubble of needing to have these games are for men and we need to take care of men. And you're complaining that you don't live up to the standard of these manly men. Let's continue.
women have taken notice. Where did all the good men go, they ask. Well, again, there are so many answers to that question, I wouldn't know exactly where to begin or end. The simple answer, though, is that society doesn't need them anymore, and men who might otherwise have been good are opting out, and are turning to games to exercise their nature because in most cases, they have nowhere else to go.
This brings back my question of how much do you value yourself? You're absolutely right. There are women out there who want the world but don't want to work for it, that want the guy with a great job, car, house, rich, handsome, has big equipment. But there are men out there who want the 9 or 10 level girl with that would praise the ground that they walk on. They're called humans. And you're coming from this a place where you feel that you're being persecuted because you're a man now and you have to retreat into video games. This isn't new. Men have been retreating into things forever. So have women. It's just that we can't own women as property anymore and tell them what to do. I get it. You miss that dynamic, or you want that dynamic where you think it was actually viable and real, but it was a facade. So let's continue.
Nowhere can they succeed now on their own terms except inside these virtual worlds. Instead of showing them support, critics call them basement dwellers and neatly categorize them as a problem of their own making. They simply lack what other men have, which in some cases may be true, but not always. Maybe some of these men are tired of the rat race. Maybe they're tired of being berated by an overly feminized society that rejects them outright for wanting a fair deal.
The only thing that is fair is what you have at state get-togethers. There is no such thing as fairness. Justice is what we make of it. Justice is what we bring together as a society to say, this is what we call justice. And you're right. It is out of line for people to call others who play video games basement dwellers. That's somebody putting themselves above some perceived person that's below them. You're right. Maybe we shouldn't try to go for the rat race. I give you that. But it's not just, man, deliver me from these people that think that women have so much power that they would not trade places with a woman. We all have our crosses to bear. We all have things that we must deal with.
I'd be a basement dweller all the time if I could, lol.
You're right, Review. I would too. If I didn't have to try, I wouldn't. That's the craziest part. If I didn't have to try to deal with society, I wouldn't. We're lazy. We're humans. We go for the path of least resistance. That's our nature. Men or women. There are some people that are compelled to do things. I give them that. And I don't mean crazy things. But I'm somebody who's compelled to draw. I'm somebody who's compelled to philosophize. Wow, I almost said philosophize.
Basement dweller. Someone that lives with mom and dad at 3-5.
You know what? If I didn't have to try, I wouldn't. And the thing about it is, we're in a society that makes it easy. Not because someone's trying to feminize society or destroy men. No, humans create an environment to try to make ourselves comfortable. We are programmed to be lazy, but happy when we're active. That's just our nature. But let's continue. Let's finish this up.
Maybe there really is no way for some of them to succeed now. But if that's the case, why do they deserve further humiliation? Instead of addressing the cause, critics tell them that their very nature is something to be ashamed of. Don't play those games, read those books, or watch those movies with typical male angles. Be ashamed of the fact that your male ancestors fought hard to survive,
Well, I'm
to
not,
protect
but
women,
if
to
society
protect
keeps
children,
making it
and
so
when necessary,
expensive to live, there
sacrifice
will
their
be a lot
lives
more
so that
people
their
living in
wives,
their parents'
children, and
basement.
community would survive.
Yes, have that discussion. Review. You're making the point that I am saying. If we want to talk about socioeconomics, that's something. But don't make it just about men. Don't make it just about, well, let's just use up men and we use them. Just the point he just made. Why would we say that men have less value than women? They don't. We all equally have value, and it's a value that we're assigned to ourselves. But I am sad to say, specifically, that this person needs to find value in a video game. I play video games because I like stories, and I like to accomplish stuff. I like to solve puzzles. But that's not my raison d'etre. It's not my reason to live. If you want to say my reason to live is to argue, debate, have conversations, look into different topics, I would agree with you on that. It may be small to you. It may not make sense to you. But to actually state that the only reason that you have to live has to do with playing a video game, sad, baby.
Now that we have this great modernized world where you're no longer needed, please go away and die. I've deviated a little, but let's get back on track and summarize the points I tried to make here. Men like open world games because
Well,
they
if
simulate a
people would
world
learn
wherein
McDonald's
they
is
are
not a
required
job
to
to
be
have
men.
FOMO.
They must gather resources, they must strategically choose their alliances, and they must fight to protect others. In a nutshell, that's what being a man is. So maybe some
Then 2
women and
years
overly
tops.
feminized men should stop accusing the video game industry of sexism and realize that these games were designed by men for men. And
All right. So, Kill Scythe, I'm gonna have to disagree with you because here's the thing: McDonald's is open during school hours. We are going to a service society. Not to say that we shouldn't go back to different manufacturing societies, but it is one of those things where people used to say the automobile would put horse and buggy out of business and you would never see anymore. We still have those things. And with this guy, I have to say this. The reason why video games are coded masculine is because they were considered toys and they just put them in a boys' aisle. There were women who played video games and created video games from the start. If you want to be represented in video games and you're mad because they're taking your representation out of video games, imagine the feeling of people who are not represented in video games. It's as if you're saying that no, they're not completely representing me by representing somebody else, and I'm in partially, not all the way, but partially representing someone else, and I have an issue with that. I'm crying because they cry about not getting representation. What a paradox that is. But let's finish.
there's nothing wrong with that. It's okay to be a man.
So that's the end of his video. Let's just put something else on. Give me a second, guys. Because this actually just... That itself just, it irritates me. And the reason why it irritates me is the reason why he's crying isn't because there is a social economic issue that's happening with both men and women. No, it's only affecting me, so it matters. When it affects somebody else, it doesn't matter. And I just, I don't get how people can be like that. And maybe because I'm weird and I'm just different, where I don't have this whole thing in believing in jealousy. I can understand envy, but just jealousy, that's just not my thing. All right. So, what are my takeaways from this guy? First, I want you to find value in yourself other than just being a man with a genetic need to spread your seed. That's what I want to actually have you do. And I want everybody to realize that there's a lot of shit affecting everybody. There's unemployment, underemployment, there's undereducation that's affecting everybody. And the fact is, it's not just hitting men. Trust me, it's hitting everybody. And as a society, especially here in America, we are going to more of a service-based society versus a manufacturer-based. And that's also due to globalization. So if you want to have that discussion, have that discussion. But don't say, well, because that's happening, leave games for men. I don't get it. I actually watched a video of somebody who says that when the recent Battlefield 5 guys, one of the things that they had to tell their daughters, they both had daughters, that how come women aren't represented in games. The guy literally says they
Who's
were
at fault
lying.
for undereducating?
Well, there is cooking. There's a number of things that under education are actually affected by, and that's a bigger discussion. It's not as simple as, well, you don't want to go to school, but that's a different discussion, and I'm willing to have that discussion at a different time. And what we need to do is say, what do we want in our society? And in the end, once we decide that, do we want a society of a few winners but everybody else losing? Do we want a society where it is somewhat balanced, not tipped as far as we have it now? Then we can actually address this. But everybody going in their own little corner, in their own little bubble, saying it's everybody else's fault for the mess that we're in is really dangerous. It causes that tribalism, which I hate. But as for now, guys, wow, it's 10:30 here in the Central Time Zone. I want to thank everybody who's watched, and
Cost of tuition, books that go up every year. Someone has to pay for it. With less and less jobs, it becomes hard to pay for it.
you're absolutely right. And so let's have that discussion a different time. And I want to thank everybody who's watched, and thank you for enjoying. Remember, like and subscribe, and share the video. Thank you.